Welcome to Beneath the Bible, where we're helping you dig deeper and uncover the world beneath the sacred book. We got something a little different for you today. We have an FAQ with Philip and Lucas about what they did over this past summer as they were in the field on site at Abila in Jordan. A big thing that we do on this channel is we want to take the world of archaeology and help you read the Bible better. And that means that Philip and Lucas are real working archaeologists, even though their plans on site have been affected by COVID the last couple of years. Things are kind of getting back to normal. And so we wanted to share with you today what it's like to be on site at an archaeological dig, and a little bit specifically about the site where they were working this past summer. So with that, let's dig in.
Well, this summer we excavated in Jordan at a site called Abila. That was the first time we've excavated there. Both of us, Philip and I, have worked at a site called Corion. I've been working there for over 10 years, and I think Philip's around 8 years. We both have also worked in Israel and Central Asia, and so we've got kind of a good range of experience all around. Well, this past summer we actually had a shorter excavation season. We typically excavate on our other project usually about 6 weeks, 5-6 weeks. As a senior staff member, we are there longer. We're usually there at least 7, sometimes 8. This past summer, we only were gone for about 4 weeks, and we excavated for about 3. So that was a very short season for us, which was nice. But you don't get as much done usually in 3 weeks.
This summer at Abila, I was working in what's called Area D, sort of in between 2 different churches. There's the Area D church and the Area D church. These 2 churches are right next to each other, and we were excavating in between them.
These are basilica-style churches. They have been previously excavated a few decades ago, but we are reinvestigating not only the churches, but the area around the churches. So we spent our time excavating on the very top of the hill at Abila.
When an archaeologist goes on an excavation, there's usually a specific research question in mind that they're going to address, or they have a research design or a research question that they're following. This is sort of the difference between archaeology and a treasure hunter or a looter, really. Archaeologists have specific questions that you're going to address, and you excavate where you think you can address those questions. And treasure hunters is going to go where they can find the best stuff.
Archaeologists are not looters, and we're not treasure hunters. We value the context, we value documentation, we value the methodological process of excavation so that we can control and document and record everything that we do and what we find so that we can properly analyze it, process it, and then write it up and publish it for the wider academic community and the wider global community.
Archaeologists always go to a site with a research design and research questions in mind. That means when we show up, we have specific things that we are trying to answer. We're not necessarily looking for anything. We just have questions about the site, questions about the period, and so we go and we excavate only where we think we can answer those questions. And archaeologists are really concerned about context. We're really concerned about understanding the larger picture, and we really are only going to expose what we need to address those specific research questions within that larger context. And the other thing is, since we're really concerned with context, we document everything. We have field notes that we write in the field. We take photos, so anytime we open and close a locus, anytime there's a artifact that's important to see in its context. We take field notes at the end of the day. We write up a report at the end of the season, and we have to publish our findings. So we're very concerned with context and documenting everything. So that's what we did this summer at Area D.
Get paid. That's funny.
Pass.
The site of Abila is located about 15 kilometers northeast of the modern city of Irbid in northern Jordan and about 4 to 5 kilometers south of Wadi Yarmouk, which is the modern border between Jordan and Syria and is on the north side of Syria. Abila is one of the Decapolis cities that is a group of about 10 cities that formed during the Hellenistic period and was in the Greco-Roman period and were a confederation or league located on the south side of the Sea of Galilee in the Transjordan. Abila consists of two mounds, Tel Abila in the north and Khirbet El Ahmad, which means the ruins of the mother of the columns in the south, with the large saddle depression between them. The name of the southern hill comes from the high frequency of toppled columns on the site that were found all over the top of the site. Nevertheless, it is still part of the larger site of Abila. Surveys and excavations have confirmed that the site extends back to at least the Bronze Age and possibly earlier than the Neolithic. Thus, the site has a long occupational history, some of which overlaps with the Old Testament. But for now, we won't go into great detail regarding the history and archaeology of the site, as that would take too long and too much time. For now, I'll just focus on Abila and a few connections that it has to the New Testament and to Jesus. Although we have a number of Greco-Roman sources that do reference Abila, the site is not specifically mentioned in the biblical text by name. The term Decapolis is specifically referred to 3 times in the New Testament with connections to Jesus' ministry. Matthew 4:25 reads, "Large crowds from Galilee, the Decapolis, Jerusalem, Judea, and the region across the Jordan followed him." Mark 5:20 says, "So the man went away and began to tell in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and all the people were amazed." Additionally, in Mark chapter 7:31, it says that then Jesus left the vicinity of Tyre and went through Sidon, down to the Sea of Galilee and into the region of the Decapolis. There are also a few other times that the Decapolis is alluded to in the biblical text, but we may deal with that at another time. What these passages do tell us, though, more broadly, is that Jesus visited the area of the Decapolis numerous times. Word about him and his message spread throughout the area. More specifically, can we determine if Jesus visited Abila? Simply put, we don't know. We may never be able to conclusively answer this question, but what we can say is that Abila is a very important city with close proximity to Galilee, being only about 12 Roman miles from Gadara. It was located on a strategic trade route from Nabatea to Damascus, and it had a bountiful water source and equally bountiful agricultural lands surrounding it. Now, whether Jesus actually visited Abila physically, we may never know, but he was certainly represented there. We know that that his message made it there and that people accepted it. We know this because we have abundance of Christian art and architecture that develops from the later periods that testifies to Jesus' message. Now, this leads us to our excavations of the site. Although we were not excavating the chronological period of Jesus, we are excavating a period associated with the early church. We were excavating a period known as late antiquity, where we see the spread of Christianity around the Mediterranean. And this is evidenced by the construction of basilica churches across the Mediterranean area.
So on an excavation, everybody has a very specific job. So there's the dig director. This is the person who secures the funding for the project, the person who deals with the local government, who gets the permit. And they're the one who sets the research agenda. They're the one who decides what our research questions are going to be, how we're going to go about it. So there's the dig director. And oftentimes they'll open up a field or many fields within the site. So they'll the larger site, and they'll have very few spots around the site that they open, which we typically call fields. And each field is run by a field archaeologist or field director. That was my job. I worked in Area D. The field archaeologist is the one who takes the research agenda from the director and enacts it. They're the one who makes sure that the methodology in the field is done, who's making sure everything is being documented. We're the ones who are deciding, okay, we're going to work over here, we're going to answer this question there. That was my job. But the field archaeologist is working with area supervisors or square supervisors, people who are in the dirt in very specific spots and doing that specific work. And those area supervisors will have either volunteers, or in Jordan we also had hired workmen who work with them. So in At the project in Jordan, at Abila, I was a field archaeologist. At the project in Cyprus, at Corian, I'm an area supervisor or a square supervisor, where I work for Lucas, who is our field director. So the field archaeologist is really pretty involved with the whole process. I don't necessarily set the specific research agenda, but I have a lot of input. I can talk to the director and I can say, here's what I'm seeing, here's what I think would be good to know, here's some questions I have about this area. So we have some liberty to look at what we want to look at and explore what we want to see. And so we're involved kind of from the planning stages all the way through to the actual excavation. I get in the dirt when I need to, and I like to get in the dirt as often as you can. As a field archaeologist, you need to know what you're looking at and need to know what you're digging. And then all the way through to publication. The field archaeologists often write a big chunk of the publication. I know Area D, I'm going to know Area D at Abila, and I'm going to write that part up. It's also important to know that different sites will have different structures. So at Abila, we have the director and then multiple fields that are open, and then they have square supervisors and volunteers all the way down. But some projects will be very small, where you have the dig director who will also be the field director. They might only have one field open. So it really depends on the project and how they organize it specifically. But on this project, I was the field director. So archaeologists kind of joke that we tend to have a hobbit schedule. So archaeologists get up and we want to be at the site at daybreak, which means we're up before the sun and we'll really start working as the sun is coming up. So we wake up in the morning, you have first breakfast, we work in the field for a few hours, then we have second breakfast, and then we'll work really about till lunchtime, where we come in from the field because it's starting to get too hot. The lighting of the sun, you really can't see as much. Everybody's getting tired and sweaty. And so when we're done working in the field, we'll come in and we'll have lunch, we'll eat, we'll cool off a little bit, and then we do a lot of the paperwork. We do artifact processing. We have to wash pottery. We have to do pottery reading. We have to look and see if there's any coins or anything that needs special processing. We'll do our paperwork. We'll write up what we did that day. We'll write, if you're a square supervisor, write what you did and in that specific square, and you'll do all the notes for that day. The field archaeologist is going to say, this is what the whole field did this day and why we did it and the way we did it. So all that happens in the afternoon, and then we're usually to bed pretty early because we have to wake up at like 4:30. Now, this is pretty different for people who are working for the dig versus people who just go on the dig. So if you want to go volunteer for a dig, you'll get up early, you'll eat breakfast, go out and you'll work in the field, and you may not have as much to do in the afternoon. A lot of people who just volunteer on projects have a lot of free time, and you get to go really experience the culture and experience where you're living, which is really pretty fun. But if you're working for the project and you're on staff, you have a lot of responsibilities. Some projects will give volunteers camp life responsibilities. You have to clean up the camp, you have to take out the trash, do all that kind of stuff. So everybody has some responsibilities, and if you're on staff, you have the sort of technical note writing responsibilities and all that kind of stuff. The excavation is always really fun. I just love excavating, I love being in the dirt, I love uncovering history, and it's just unbeatable. It's just the best part of it. But there's also some really cool stuff we got to do this year. Before we started excavating, our team showed up early, and we got to do a little bit of touring in Jordan. So we got to cross off a bunch of bucket list things that the whole team has really wanted to do. We had an extended layover in Istanbul, and we got to go out and see the city a little bit. We got to go to Hagia Sophia, which is something I've always wanted to do. When we landed in Jordan, we drove down to Petra. We got to spend a few days in Petra. This is an amazing site. If you ever get the chance to go, can't recommend it enough. We got to stay in Madaba and see the Madaba map, which is the 6th century map of the Holy Land that's in a mosaic floor in a church. I got to go to Jerash, which is one of the best preserved of the Decapolis sites. It's been excavated for decades and has been restored. It's a really amazing place to see. So we had to cross off all these bucket list sites, which is really it was an amazing experience for this year. It's also my first time working in Jordan, so I got to experience Jordanian culture. I gotta say, Jordan is an amazing country. Everybody was, embarrassingly friendly. Hospitality was huge. Everybody was so friendly. Can't recommend it enough. It was also fun because a lot of these people on the team I went to grad school with, and they live California and Tennessee and Florida, and so I got to meet up with them and see them face to face, which I don't get to do that often, so that was a lot of fun. we had some really kind of fun, unexpected things that we weren't anticipating that we got to have anyway. So the big one for me was that we got to have air conditioning where we were staying. We did not anticipate having air conditioning. A lot of places that we stay don't have air conditioning, so it's really nice to come in from the heat of the day and to be able to actually cool down, which you don't always get to do on an excavation. The other thing that was really nice is we had an actual sit-down toilet, what we called the 3D toilet. Where we were, it was mostly what we call Turkish toilets, but our where we were staying actually had one sit-down toilet that about 40 people got to share. So in Abila, where we stayed was actually a school. We stayed in an elementary school that obviously the kids were out for the summer, and we converted the classrooms into dorm rooms, and we had about 4 to 6 people who would stay in a room. And that's actually pretty typical. This is what a lot of excavations do, is they will convert a school or something like that into sort of a camp where people will stay. Some places, some excavations in Israel will have like a hotel or a bed and breakfast kind of thing where you stay at, but that's not very typical. Most excavations in the Near East will have these sorts of accommodations where you're staying in a school. But it's also really nice because you get to live in the community where you're working. So the village we stayed in was called Harta, and so when you're done with the excavation, if you want to go get a snack or get something to eat, you just go out into the community. You get to know people, you get to say hi to people, and people are very welcoming. So that's a really nice thing about staying there, is we got to really live in the community. And really, to be honest, our accommodations were really pretty good. I really can't complain about it. Some people might think it's a little bit rustic, but we had really great accommodations compared to some projects I've heard of. So the way it works with all excavations these days is that everything you find belongs to the local government. So the government of Jordan permitted us to excavate and to do work at the site, and so everything we find belongs to the Jordanian government. It's the same when you work in Israel, or if you work in Cyprus, or work in Egypt, or really anywhere. You're permitted by the local government, so everything belongs to them. This also extends to publication. So we're usually asked not to publish anything, even informally. Like, we can't put up a post on Twitter or Facebook like, hey, look at this amazing that I found. So the local government even gets first say over sort of a press release, which is why we don't really talk about what we find on excavations. We don't show you pictures here of like, oh, look at this amazing thing that we found, because that's really not our place. It belongs to the local government, and so we don't get to publish it first. We will eventually publish it, but we will publish it through the proper process. It means we'll do a formal write-up, we'll take our official pictures, submit it to a journal, and they will publish it. I started as a history major in college, and a friend of the family suggested that I should maybe try an excavation. I should try to go on a project. So when I was in college, I went on a project in Israel, and I loved it. And it's pretty much been focusing on how do I get into this field ever since. So that's how I got into the field. And a lot of people have very similar stories. Is you go on a project once, and then you're hooked.
Well, the obvious is family. Always miss them a lot.
But also, I miss Mexican food.
Air conditioning,
Flushing the toilet paper.
Mexican food,
Sushi.
sit-down toilets,
Flushing the toilet.
toilet paper,
Burritos.
water with ice,
Warm showers.
washing machines,
Showering.
water that is not bubbly, hot water.
Well, nothing that we excavated specifically this year, but there's a lot of places we went, a lot of things we saw that we are really excited to show you here on this channel. So subscribe so you don't miss that.
Thanks for joining us for this Beneath the Bible video. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into what it's like to be on an archaeological dig. If you liked what you saw, be sure to let us know in the comments, and if you have more questions, go ahead and drop them in there too. We'd love to do a follow-up on this video as well. If you found this video helpful, go ahead and take a minute to share it with your friends. And until next time, keep digging.